What's going on, Internet? It is October now, and there is so much content to cover that I literally cannot cover it all in individual videos, so I'm going to be breaking it down by streaming services of what you can watch this month to get into the Halloween spirit. Starting with two of Netflix's new movies, No One Gets Out Alive, and There's Someone Inside Your House.
Stop out there.
Yeah. So much better in here.
No One Gets Out Alive is the feature debut of Santiago Mangini, and it is based on a novel by Adam Neville, the writer of The Ritual. It stars Christina Rodlo as Ambar, an immigrant woman who moves to a tenement in Ohio after the death of her mother, and her hopes for the American dream start crumbling around her outside, and her inside life is plagued by visions of dead people and a strange, mysterious stone box that keeps appearing in her dreams. I knew nothing of this movie going into it, and thus I really didn't have any expectations, but it was being billed as from the creators of The Ritual, and I love The Ritual, so I figured I would check it out, and I was pleasantly surprised with what I got from No One Gets Out Alive. This film is similar to other recent immigrant-based horror films like Culture Shock and His House, films that center around a migrant character coming in from a foreign country only to be met with adversity in the form of discrimination, racial injustice, systemic injustice, and something supernatural and horrifying on top of all of that. Where No One Gets Out Alive succeeds is creating a tense, isolated feel for Ambar, who is in a rough situation and has no one to turn to. She's here illegally, so she can't go to the police, she has no real family in the area, and every step she takes to try and better her situation ends up backfiring and making things worse, and you genuinely feel for her. She's got ghosts in her tenement and racists outside, and it's a real no-win situation. What I appreciated about this movie was its subtlety. It's very easy to take a story like this and turn your creepy tenement into a funhouse of jump scares and spooky ghosts. That's not what this film does. Instead, it takes a much more subtle approach to the spooky elements of this film and chooses to keep a vast majority of them relegated to the background and letting you notice them at your own pace. There aren't really many jump scares here, and the scares are aided by some truly fantastic sound design that zeroes in on every single odd noise coming from this apartment building, and it really creates this wildly unsettling vibe of having no one to turn to and no one around you who you really know. And that feeling of isolation is sort of the only thing interesting about the first two acts of this film. I was hoping for a bit more in regards to the immigration aspect, something a little deeper, a bit more well-rounded commentary in the vein of films like Culture Shock and His House. But as it stands, the immigration aspect really doesn't tie into the film in any meaningful way. It just serves as a catalyst for Ambar to be alone in all of this. Thankfully, Christina Rodlo plays the character with a much needed energy and makes her incredibly sympathetic, and we genuinely want to see her get herself out of this hole she's in. That aspect, as well as the main mystery that drip feeds you bits of info as the film goes on to keep you invested, are the main things that kept me watching up to the third act. And boy, am I glad I kept watching to the third act, because this movie, much like The Ritual, has an insane climax. No One Gets Out Alive throws you for a loop in this third act in a way that makes sense, but also blindsides you because you did not see this coming. The Ritual, and I just really ended up being pleasantly surprised with how this movie concluded. I went into this not really expecting anything, and I ended up being more than pleasantly surprised with what I got. It's not perfect, it's slow in some places, and certain aspects of its plot just feel unnecessary, but it's sufficiently scary, and it's got a shockingly bonkers third act that makes the film worth watching at least once, if not only for the creature design. I definitely recommend it as a good way to start getting into the Halloween spirit. And in order to stay in that spirit, let's talk about Netflix's good old-fashioned slasher film. There's Someone Inside Your House is the newest film produced by James Wan and directed by Patrick Brice, the director of the Creep franchise. It stars Sidney Park, Theodore Pellerin, Asia Cooper, Jesse LaTourette, and it tells the story of a group of students at Osborne High who are getting ready to graduate, and in the weeks leading up to graduation, a serial killer begins picking off students who have dark secrets, exposing them to the entire town while wearing 3D printed masks of his victims' faces. Now, I want to start this off by saying that it truly does warm my heart that between this film and Malignant, James Wan is currently at the forefront of a slasher revival, and I hope it continues because I unapologetically love slasher films. Good, bad, regardless of quality. That formula is just home to me, and There's Someone Inside Your House is something that I really enjoyed regardless of its faults, and there are faults. As far as delivering on a fun, enjoyable slasher romp, the movie does well at that. It's a fun little modern, more socially conscious riff on late 90s, early 2000s horror films like Scream and Cherry Falls, with a party scene that feels lifted directly out of the latter. It's self-aware, it follows the formula pretty much to a T, The killer manages to be frightening, if only in his efficiency, and it's shockingly violent, delivering on some really gruesome kills that I was not expecting in a film like this. The opening scene is especially effective, with Patrick Brice once again showcasing his ability to create tension. The opening, I think, is the strongest point in the film, and it is very reminiscent of Scream without managing to be wholly aping it, and it does its own thing in a way that is refreshing. And it all caps off with an opening credit sequence that manages to throw back to early 2000s horror films with a cool opening credit montage over like glimpses of the killer's lair or the killer's backstory. It's a fun thing that we don't really get anymore, and I love it unapologetically. Like I said, this movie is definitely socially conscious, a bit heavy-handedly so at times, and that's both a good and a bad thing. On one hand, it is great to see a cast this diverse. There are multiple POC characters, there's an NB character, it's very cool. On the other hand, that kind of diversity is cool until you realize that they're not doing anything with it and that none of these characters are written as characters. It's like you're halfway there. You have these characters represented in the movie, now actually develop them, please. On top of that, the fact that this movie features so many non-white, non-straight characters and the fact that this film is as socially aware as it is, it's very easy to predict who the killer won't be, because making it any of those characters would be more harmful to the groups they're there representing. And as a result, the pool of characters that the killer could be is like 3, one of whom is clearly a red herring, so if you've seen any films along these lines before, it's very easy to predict who the killer actually is. Still, like I said, I am a slut for slasher films, and this delivered on the formula that I so much enjoy, and for that reason alone, I had a decent enough time with this, and I think some people will as well. Am I ever going to revisit it? Probably not. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to remember it for things that it did well, like the kills and the cool killer concept. The characters are just underwritten and the film gets a bit predictable as far as, the mystery that it's trying to get you to buy into. All in all, though, I would recommend checking out both No One Gets Out Alive and There's Someone Inside Your House for no other reason than you get to watch some shitty people die in excessively violent ways. If you want a socially conscious twist on Scream with elements of slasher movies that you've seen before but with a modern spin, check out There's Someone Inside Your House. If you want, more of a ghost story, creature feature type deal, check out No One Gets Out Alive. Both of them are pretty neat, and I would recommend watching them at least once. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you like this channel, you want to see more, click down there, like, comment, subscribe. Patreon link is down in the description. Click the bell notification if you want to subscribe and get notified when I upload. I'm going to try and get some more videos like this up before the end of the month for, Hulu, Netflix, and then I'm going to do some individual reviews for, things on Shudder and some stuff in theaters. So I'm really excited to talk about that with y'all. And if you like this channel, keep watching. Be like any of these cool people right here. I'll see you all very soon.
911.
Hi, the killer's here. He's wearing a mask on my face and he's forcing me to record offensive hate speech, and I...